the Hunters' economy is changing.
I think we're seeing an economy that's transitioning from mining and manufacturing dominated to one where the services sector plays more of a role.
Of the 45,000 local businesses, 2/3 are in the service industry. Health, education and retail among the top employers. There's been a boom in jobs too. 14,000 more people were employed at the end of March compared to January last year.
Across Australia, we're seeing an increase in part-time employment, particularly around young people.
According to the Hunter Research Foundation's latest quarterly report, it's not only what people do that's changing, but where they choose to live. Demand has pushed the median house price in Lake Macquarie to $500,000. That's slightly more expensive than Newcastle at $490,000.
I think people now are putting a real dollar value on lifestyle. And that's why we've seen this trend happening, which has been happening probably over the last 10 years, but we've seen it overtake Newcastle in the last 12 months.
We're also seeing quite a lot of housing development starting to appear, and I think for the economy we really need to see construction playing a role here as it's done throughout New South Wales.
But with global competition and ever real threat, we're being urged to think outside the box.
As a region, we have to be thinking globally and innovating to make sure we can capture global opportunities.
Amanda Douglas, NBN News. Bill Shorten arriving in East Maitland to a mostly warm reception. Plenty of selfies and even a hug for the opposition leader as he met with voters to discuss disability funding, Medicare and the National Broadband Network. This visit, his second to the electorate of Paterson, less chaotic than the last. Last month, a head-on collision near Mr Shorten's planned media conference saw him get caught up in the drama. His announcement for Testers Hollow postponed. Instead, it came today, but without the Labor leader.
I was in Central Coast a while. The policy's been ticked off by myself and Joel Fitzgibbon. And Merrill are very committed to making sure that we sort out Testers Hollow.
Local, state and federal ALP politicians this morning committed $10 million to begin planning for the upgrade of Cessnock Road at Testers Hollow. Last April, the Gilliston Heights community was isolated by floodwater for a week.
It is crazy that in the 21st century we still have whole townships being cut off in time of flood.
We all know that this has been going on for decades. It needs to be done.
Liberal candidate for Paterson, Karen Howard, says she supports an upgrade but believes Labor's announcement is premature.
I think it's again a Bill Shorten spend-a-metre activity and quite irresponsible at this point in time.
However, the Maitland and Cessnock mayors believe it's a step in the right direction.
Big project, it's a start. Let's get the studies done. Let's find a solution to this issue.
We need both levels of government to be working with local councils to be able to say, let's have a look at this, let's join in together and look at what is required.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
This area has been a Labor stronghold and accordingly disgracefully neglected for such a long time, and it's why I'm so very proud of this announcement.
It'll be a tremendous boost for the club. It's been an aim we've sought after for the last 10 years to try and improve our facilities.
The children took full advantage of being able to silence their parents. The annual Shush for Kids round aims to make sure that spectators know there's no place in the sport for negative sideline comments.
I don't think there's any need at all, really. Look, we'd all love our kids to be Sam Burgess or Adam Reynolds, but realistically they're there to have fun, hang out with some mates and do a bit of exercise, which is good for everyone.
The CRL started the initiative last year to try and combat an increase in abuse coming from parents.
I think it reinforces everyone their rights and responsibilities when they come to a game, that it is the kids that are centre stage and they're the ones that should be supported and cheered for.
Those involved say they're already seeing an improvement in behaviour.
It has been in the past where people just seem to have think they have a licence to say what they like, but over the last couple of years, and especially more so this year, that everyone's sort of taken a bit of a step back and realised that without officials that the games just can't go ahead.
It makes the game flow a lot better and the kids enjoy it a lot more. It's a lot easier for me to ref and keep the kids under control when the parents are supportive.
It also helps teach all the junior rugby league players to respect all the helpers in the game they love.
Because it's fun and you get to score tries and all that.
Sky Hull, NBN News.
It assists people to be able to understand where, how the sea level rise is going to affect them. So, and how infrastructure and the development of things like roads, parks, will need to be adjusted in order to cope with that.
A packed Townsend Oval for the local derby, an arm wrestle early and the Wanderers with plenty of momentum before spreading it wide. Seconds after the restart, Jay Strawn in open space, continuing his career best form. A dubious offload and the home side was over. Wanderers hitting back though, a sharp backline move out to Elliot Jennings on the left wing. Leading by a point after the break, the Greens were under siege. A nasty tackle and the visitors were down to 14 before they stretched the lead to 9. The Wanderers' confidence building every time the ball was in hand, Jennings crossing over for his second. With a 14-point lead, the visitors were looking every bit unstoppable. Frustrations blowing over, and despite a late try for the Greens, the Wanderers looking premiership material in 2016 with a 36-20 win. A shaky start from the Jaffas, down 2-1, but Luke Remington handed striker Joel Wood a gift to level things up right on half-time. After the break, the Jaffas were full of confidence. Joel Wood showing his speed on the right. Remington was right there to clean things up. Belmont Swansea throwing around their size, but the lethal combination of Remington and Wood sealed it 4-2. A fiery matchup between Thornton and Singleton. Kieran Burrell's mistake opened things up for the Redbacks. Jamie Subat getting behind the striker's defence for the game's first goal. A chance to hit back a short time later. Burrell's redemption finally coming just before the half, getting ahead of his man and putting one past the Redbacks keeper. Singleton moving on in the competition with a 2-1 victory.
The final stage of the inner-city bypass from Rankin Park to Jesmond. It's set to cost $280 million, but some want more. A New Lambton residents group says the original plan lacks access ramps from McCaffrey Drive and to John Hunter Hospital.
This means that whenever there is a blockage, congestion or an incident or accident up at the front entrance to the John Hunter Hospital, emergency vehicles won't be able to access the hospital via the bypass.
Rob Brooks says extra money should be spent, $35 million for additional ramps. He says his group's research suggests local feeder roads like Grandview Road will be put under additional strain from traffic using the bypass.
That is already at overcapacity. There's on the RMS data, there's 2,700 vehicles currently using that road. Grandview Road, and it's only designed for a maximum of 2,500 vehicles.
Despite the budget being handed down on Tuesday, member for Wallsend Sonia Hornery says the extra money could be budgeted for next year and rolled out over several years.
We already have written representation to the Minister, and I've brought numerous notices, motion and questions in Parliament to that effect. I think it would be in the best interests of the Roads and Maritime Service to plan of in the future.
The RMS is expected to release a revised design later this year. Georgina Smythe, NBN News. These courts have seen their fair share of battles, and the election campaign is no different. Labor courting Newcastle voters with more than $500,000.
Pledging $600,000.
The money used to resurface 10 of the centre's 24 courts to more superior competition standard hard courts.
Really gets stage one of that redevelopment underway and enables the local association and Tennis New South Wales to concentrate on the next big phase of redevelopment.
The three-stage development could take up to 7 years to complete and would include an upgrade to the clubhouse, additional lighting and wheelchair accessibility. But the club says the initial investment would go a long way to ensuring the sustainability of the ageing complex.
We've always been able to maintain the centre, but we've never ever been able to generate enough funds to further upgrade.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
These playful creatures attract tens of thousands of visitors and inject $4 million into Port Stephens every year. Today, these dolphins took centre stage for a different reason, the focus of the annual census.
Weather can affect the dolphin count. It certainly impacts participants' likeliness to get out on the water, and it also impacts our ability to easily spot the dolphins.
More than 50 local volunteers kept watch, and despite the rough sea voyage, 66 dolphins were spotted.
I think people overlook the importance of stability. As far as we're concerned, the dolphin numbers have pretty well reached what the bay can sustain.
The census gives authorities a better idea of how the dolphin population is faring. also revealing important information about habitat hotspots.
We're starting to get more information about certainly success rates for different sites. Certain areas around the bay are going to be more key to the dolphins than others. So as we're getting more success rates at different sites, we can identify them as being key habitat areas for the dolphins.
This volunteer-based census is the longest-running community dolphin count in Australia and supports dolphin conservation and other marine studies. Sky Hull, NBN News.
Don't be fooled, this leafy outlook has a dirty past.
So where we're standing now, around about 5 years ago, this was an active mining area. So we had excavators and trucks and mining activity happening right where we're standing.
The rehabilitated site is the work of Glencore Xstrata. Its Mangoola open-cut mine near Muswellbrook is leading the way in mine rehabilitation. With a relatively shallow extraction depth of 65 metres, management saw an opportunity to recreate natural landforms.
We did a trial to see what we could do in incorporating natural landform into our rehabilitation. That worked quite well. It was quite cost effective, and we then incorporated that into a final design.
It's what watchdog the Department of Resources and Energy, or DRE, is calling best practice.
What Mangoola are doing here is what we call more of an innovative landform design, where you're getting the natural hills and hollows and valleys.
We certainly spent a lot of time inspecting the quality of our rehab, so I like to get involved in having a look and see how it's coming along, and as you can see, it's really progressed well.
And it's no accident. When a mining company applies for an exploration licence, an agreement must be reached with the state government on the condition the land will be left in. DRE then calculates the cost of the rehabilitation and holds that amount as a bank guarantee to be cashed in if companies do not honour the agreement. The amount can be refunded once rehab is complete. DRE holds over $2.1 billion in security bonds for mines in New South Wales, but some environmental groups say that amount is inadequate.
There's just no way that those bonds are big enough to fix this problem, and nobody, not the government and certainly not the mining companies, because nobody's making them, they're not talking about filling in these holes.
The Whole Truth report was released earlier this month and highlighted the potentially devastating legacy of mining in the region. The report, commissioned by Hunter Communities Network, says policymakers should look to the US, where mining companies are made to fill in final voids.
What they are saying is we're going to leave those holes. They will take hundreds of years to stabilise. They will fill up with water that will become toxic and super saline and leach into our aquifers and our rivers for hundreds of years into the future.
But the department says its approach, which identifies social, environmental and financial impacts, ensures the best outcome for the state.
There will be outcomes where there will be voids, but they will always be safe, stable and non-polluting. To be able to say that a mine can just walk away from a void, unless it's been agreed to by the government, and unless they rehabilitate that site back to what it was supposed to be and what they've got consent to do, they cannot just walk away, and that's why we hold those security bonds.
DRE says enforcing progressive rehabilitation also ensures companies incorporate the rehabilitation into their everyday operations.
Progressive rehabilitation means this site, which ceased production in 2015, will eventually look like this site, the retopping of soil and maturation of trees, eventually returning it to its natural state.
Not all mine rehabilitations have ideal outcomes. Overburden has been traditionally stored in unsightly flat-top dumps. But the department says highlighting best practice will put pressure on mining companies where policies fall short. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
Down 1-0, the Jaffers needed to lift in the second half. Joel Wood gave Olympics' Danny Ireland something to think about. Lambton eventually found an equaliser. 4 Jaffers were involved before Job Wheelhouse hammered it home. Wheelhouse was involved yet again as Lambton hit the front. His through ball set up Wood, who provided a cool finish. At the other end, Brad Swancott was on hand to maintain the Jaffers' advantage. With a lucrative prize up for grabs, the torrential rain did nothing to cool things down. Lambton responded by increasing its lead. The ball fell kindly for Reece Tippett and he made it 3-1. Hamilton did manage to claw one back as Daniel Bird and Ben Coyner combined, but the Jaffers would hang on to book their first appearance in the round of 32. In the other game, defending NPL champions Edgeworth faced First Division club Singleton. The Eagles grabbed an early lead thanks to Moriyasu. Singleton's Stuart Plant denied him a second a few minutes later, but Plant couldn't stop Brodie Taylor from making it 2-0. The rain got heavier, but the Eagles didn't let up. Aaron McLaughlin gave Edgeworth a 3-goal buffer. The Strikers went agonisingly close when Kieran Burrell set up Nathan Hall, but Jim Fogarty had it covered. By the time Moriyasu scored his second, Edgeworth was heading back to the round of 32. The draw will take place on June 30.
An alleged drug setup, professional and well hidden, today exposed by police.
Simply, it's a drug house.
Inside, this. Cannabis plants, more than 120 in total, growing in 5 purpose-built rooms.
I would say this is the best. It's very sophisticated, even to the point where the living room was. It's all been boarded up.
The property, police allege, was dedicated to one thing, and that was growing cannabis.
There was only one room besides the kitchen, which wasn't touched. And in that room was a mattress on the floor.
Bought around 6 months ago for around $550,000, the property has been transformed room by room. Police claim from inside a syndicate from Sydney ran their operations. Smashed last night when police moved in.
It was really loud banging. There was just like lots of banging.
Arresting and charging 3 men.
They brought 2 men out in handcuffs in a paddy wagon and in the van, and they took them away.
All 3 were refused bail today. Police continued the clean-up. Police allege the hydroponic setup used to grow these cannabis plants, more than 120 in total, was powered by electricity from off the grid in a further attempt to conceal the alleged activity.
They said it was extremely professional and definitely off the grid, stealing power off the grid.
This afternoon, Ausgrid crews arrived to disconnect the power. Until police return again tomorrow, detectives not ruling out laying more charges. Tyson Cottrell, NBN News.
3 years after the Scone bypass was announced, these are the words the town has been desperate to hear.
The design has been improved significantly as a result of community consultation.
The community will be certainly relieved to hear this. It's been a bit of concern of late.
The new basic designs released today did show changes to the plan. Initial thoughts from council were that the concerns with the on and off ramps have been addressed, so too emergency vehicle access.
That is an absolute commitment on this great project.
The outcome that I hope will keep the majority of people happy.
The changes are possible by an extra $20 million from the federal government and $10 million from the state, pulling 40% of Scone's traffic out of town. If the coalition is re-elected, work will get underway next year.
We're delivering. We're actually making it happen. We're finding the money to actually make it happen.
Movement on the rail overpass too. An official announcement is expected on that in the coming months.
RMS and the council are working with another rail crossing later on, and we continue to work on those plans.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News. It's only small, but this is the House of Beck, a place where she makes her craft and also sells it. Surrounded by neighbours, that can sometimes be hard. That's why she packs up shop and sets up at cafes across Newcastle.
Absolutely, yeah. I have no desire to go and work in a boring office at all.
Since opening a studio a year ago, this has been common practice. The mother of one says the ability to work where she wants, when she wants, has proven crucial.
It's almost impossible to work within the school hours and get a lot done, so you have to be a little bit more flexible.
It's that flexibility that's paying dividends for Belmont's Cafe Macquarie, a national broadband network hotspot.
We've seen a real increase in business with people that own their own businesses coming in and having a coffee or having a bit of lunch while they check the emails and stuff.
The idea of these new age offices is growing fast. Figures from the Department of Business show nearly 1 million Australians work from home, and the rise in these connected cafes, thank you, is drawing more people in.
You are not constrained to an office. You are not constrained to Monday to Friday. You are not constrained to 9 to 5. There is no need to actually have an office in today's working environment.
Cafe customers like Beck leading a workplace revolution.
The office nomad is here to stay.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
These people who want to do nasty things, all they do is draw the people of Newcastle closer together. You know, we're a refugee welcome city. We don't care about what a few crazies want to do or say.
A song from the heart. And it really hit home for former Knights footballer Mark Hughes.
That was very, very special.
Particularly so because of this little girl, 80-year-old Miley Griffiths, who was diagnosed with a malignant tumour in 2013, the same year Mark learnt of his brain cancer.
She's had her difficulties, but she's always smiling. She's got a wonderful family and got a wonderful school around her.
It's been a tough few years. Surgery left Miley with a syndrome which affects her functioning, but she's fighting back.
We've had a few challenges along the way. We're still making ground. She's doing really well. She's got a nice little group of friends now and she's enjoying school.
And the Newcastle Grammar School community has rallied around Miley and the foundation.
We've raised awareness by wearing beanies.
And how much money have you raised?
Over $3,000. $1,000.
It's just one of dozens of organisations supporting the fundraiser.
Just so grateful, and we don't take any $1 for granted. We really appreciate everyone's support.
It's not too late to buy a beanie or register to host an event. Just head to the Mark Hughes Foundation website.
When Jared Mullins suffered the injury against Manly, there were initial fears he could be out for up to 3 months. The 5/8 could be back to face the Storm on July 17.
Saw the specialist the other day and he started doing a bit of on-field work today, and he's actually probably a fair way ahead of schedule.
Robbie Rocco's contract talks are on hold for the time being, but he and Nathan Ross are among a handful of players who could return from injury for Saturday's clash with the Dragons.
Pete and Chanel Mataudia have both been out for a long time. We've both trained last week and this week and are looking like people that are available for selection.
Akila Iwate won't be back in first grade this weekend, despite Jake Mamo now being in doubt after picking up a minor knock. Nathan Brown is also considering resting Queensland representative Dane Gagai, depending on how he pulls up after Wednesday night.
We'd be hopeful that he could play, but in these situations you can never be, I suppose, overconfident, that's for sure.
On a personal note, Brown is preparing to face the Dragons for the first time in his career after spending 17 years at St George as a player and coach.
Obviously, we'll be doing our best from a coaching staff's point of view to win and a playing staff's point of view, but I'd certainly get more thrill out of beating other sides, that's for sure.
Tarek Sims won't suit up for the Dragons following his recent move away from Newcastle. Not that his presence would have fazed Jeremy Smith.
Well, it doesn't really bother me. I'll still have to tackle him if he was playing, or if he's not, well, then I'll have to tackle someone else.
What about the losing streak, mate? Does that get spoken about at all?
The Newcastle Light Rail project was the big winner from the 2016 state budget handed down here at State Parliament today. $142 million allocated for the project. The government announcing 6 light rail trains will be built by a Spanish manufacturer, while also revealing new plans about the privatisation of the transport system. It's been labelled as a win for Newcastle by Transport Minister Andrew Constance.
We're going to integrate all the transport network from the buses, the interchange, the ferry and the light rail services. This is an Australian first, and we want to see people back on public transport in Newcastle. This is the exciting change ahead. I couldn't be more excited for Newcastle as a result of this budget.
Despite the spending, the member for Newcastle wasn't overly impressed. Tim Krakenthorpe reserving his judgment for now.
Light rail carriages being built over in Spain when we've got 2 rail manufacturers here in the Hunter crying out for jobs. That is an absolute disgrace. A big spending budget for New South Wales, but not a great deal of spending for Newcastle and the Hunter.
Meanwhile, Parliamentary Secretary for the Hunter and Central Coast, Scott McDonald, was happy with the outcome.
I'm very excited about the future of the whole Hunter region, and it's important the government underpins that with good funding.
$35 million will be spent on roads, including the Toole Street Bridge duplication and improvements on Cormorant Road. Disappointment for member for Wallsend, Sonia Hornery, with no funding allocated for Stage 2 of the Glendale interchange.
That has tripartisan support, local government, state government and federal government. So I'm disappointed that the Treasurer has ignored the Hunter again.
Meanwhile, member for Port Stephens, Kate Washington, she cautiously welcomed $6.2 million for the Williamtown RAF base contamination.
I don't understand why the state government is picking up the tab for the feds. This is their mess. They need to pay for this clean-up and for the support to our community.
$6.2 million will also be spent on the new Maitland Hospital. The member there, Jenny Atchison, willing to settle for the smallest of gifts.
Oh, I'll take any money. If Gillian Skinner wants to put money on the table for Maitland Hospital, we'll take it any day of the week.
Meanwhile, Yasmin Catley walked away disappointed with how Swansea fared.
And it makes economic sense, good economic sense, to fund that project, have a permanent dredge located in Lake Macquarie.
There's also $10 million for the long-awaited Scone Bypass, $3.8 million for the TAFE Hunter Institute campus, and $650,000 will go towards the new Abermain fire station. All Labor members say they'll be holding the government to account in delivering the promises set down in today's budget.
Well, this is the first time Defence Minister Marise Payne has come to the area since news of the contamination broke last September. The obvious question NBN News had for the Minister was why it's taken so long. But Ms Payne didn't designate any time to speak with media. Instead, she was briefed by Defence officials about the situation and where remediation works on the RAF base are up to. Ms Payne also met with affected residents late this afternoon to hear their concerns.
We're just tired, we're exhausted. To having to retell our story again and not really get the answers that we need is tiring.
The Minister was only in the area for the day, but a spokesperson for her office hasn't ruled out another visit.
It really has done quite superficial damage just only on the top of the roof and the side guttering. Inside it's got a false ceiling, so there's been no damage inside.
Well, we hope it saves hundreds.
It's an attitude thing, I think, driving a car, and this is the thing that's going to make a difference to them.
To see the licence disappear off the map is quite exciting.
Following a season in Sky Blue that never lived up to expectations, Andrew Houle is determined not to let the comforts of home affect his motivation in Newcastle.
I want to come back, I want to work hard, and I'm not coming back here to relax, that's for sure, and I want to help the team and help the club.
The 22-year-old says he gained valuable experience with Sydney FC, but his desire for more game time and the interest from Scott Miller convinced him to return to the Jets, one of the top priorities, adding to Houle's 1 goal in 65 A-League appearances.
I need to work on that, and I know that, so I think I can get better and better, and overall play I need to work on as well, so there's always lots of improving to do, but yeah, definitely front third and end product is one of them.
I'm excited to see his transition. I'm certainly not looking at his negatives. I've spoken to him and actually highlighted his benefit to the team, and that is energy, that's aggression, but also his technical ability.
The coach has just returned from his overseas scouting trip, which included a near-death experience in South Africa.
7:30 in Durban outside a place called Pongola, and an elephant, 39-year-old elephant, decided to stomp us. So he's about 10 yards away and the game ranger was about to shoot it, so it was quite fortunate we got there.
Miller couldn't be happier to learn that the Jets had been bought by Martin Lee. The coach is hoping to utilise the new owner's resources to build a squad of 23 players, but at this stage, a marquee is unlikely.
You're managing people's expectations. You want excitement around the team as well, but my thoughts are we'll remain consistent within the salary cap for the first 6 to 12 months, and I think that's a reality.
Chris Lees has had plenty to smile about this racing season. Lucia Valentina claimed Sydney's richest race, the Queen Elizabeth Stakes, in emphatic fashion, while Lou Romaine's win in the Randwick Guineas was equally stirring.
It's not in number of wins, but quality of wins, most definitely, and I think that's what racing's about. You need to try and perform at the highest level, and we're just fortunate this season we've had the right type of horses.
Danish Twist surprised many with its win in the Provincial Championship, and the mare has continued to impress, winning its last 3 starts since. This weekend is a step up in class.
She's certainly come of age over her last 4 runs to win and in good company. She's just taken that next step each time we've stepped her up in grade. We didn't have high expectations, but she's just continued to improve every time she's gone the races.
Danish Twist will enjoy a month's rest after Saturday's run. She's 3rd in the betting market, ahead of tomorrow's barrier draw.
Providing she gets a nice gate and Hugh Bowman gives her a soft enough run, I think she'll be very strong late.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
Police working to clear a house brimming with cannabis plants, looking for clues to track down those behind the elaborate setup.
Yesterday afternoon, officers stormed the Thornton property. What greeted them, shocking even the force's most seasoned. 195 cannabis plants spread throughout every room. A house dedicated purely to growing drugs.
In my experience, I haven't seen it in the Hunter. It's very sophisticated. We do have lines of inquiry that will take us outside of the Hunter area.
Neighbours say they long suspected something wasn't quite right here in this house. They say the property was sold a year ago and 2 men moved in, but there was never a removalist truck, and that the new residents were hardly ever home. The property was brought to the attention of police when it was discovered very little power was being used at the house. They allege the hydroponic setup was being powered by electricity from off the grid, in a setup extremely dangerous to nearby residents.
Something like that could catch fire in a moment's notice. It's very dangerous, a large number of water and hydroponic equipment inside the house.
It comes just a day after police uncovered what they've labelled as one of the most sophisticated drug setups ever seen in Newcastle. A possible link to the Wallsend operation is being investigated.
We don't want this in the community in the Hunter area or within New South Wales.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
This is the opportunity residents of Dora Creek have waited years for. At a long-awaited meeting with the RMS, their message was clear. And it appears to have been heard. Feasibility studies will start soon into building a new bridge. In the meantime, a permanent fence will be built to stop people from running across traffic. Work on that will begin in August.
I'll give credit where credit's due, but at the end of the day, it's been a long time coming.
Residents say work needs to happen now, given the bridge's condition. Cracks at the foundations, buckled framing and steel beams bent well out of shape.
It's just not good enough. It's not up to scratch, and it's been like that for a long, long time.
It's made even more frustrating after this letter, which Mr McNeil says was accidentally sent to him by Duncan Gay in late 2014. In it, the state's road minister stated he shares the community's concern about the bridge and that the RMS would look into the matter. Despite the interest declared in this letter, neither party has committed any money towards the bridge's upgrade. After again missing out in yesterday's state budget, attention is now turned to a federal level. The suburb is now in the redistributed seat of Hunter, and Labor member Joel Fitzgibbon says it certainly has his support, as well as taking a swipe at the state government.
It's a golden opportunity for Joel to step up to the plate.
The Dora Creek community hoping it brings action sooner rather than later.
A really disastrous accident could occur.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
It makes a big difference to know that the government would support the work that we do, that they're looking to grow on the work that we're doing to continue to fund Australian innovation and Australian science.
The face of Newcastle is changing, and with more details on the city's new transport network revealed in yesterday's state budget, the Property Council's focus has now shifted to how the light rail fleet should look.
All around the world, transport systems have their own livery, they have their own identity, they become part of the brand of the city. So why not let Novocastrians decide what our trams are going to look like?
Hunter Director Andrew Fletcher is calling for a design competition to ensure the winning choice is unique, steering clear of the look that's been embraced in Sydney. The Property Council explaining how these eye-catching, colourful carriages in France have become an important part of the city's brand, labelling it as an example to follow. The body has also welcomed news the government is investigating ways for light rail tracks to be installed level with the surrounding surface, something it has long campaigned for.
What we're pleased about is the fact that it appears the government has listened to industry groups like the Property Council and indeed the community about concerns we had around the prospect of raised curbs in the middle of Hunter Street. So that's gone. That's good news.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
For Nick Newling, a chat can save a life.
We can all be a part of this. We have an opportunity to help each other by talking and listening.
The outspoken mental health advocate is touring the Hunter this week, speaking to school students and the public about reducing stigma and lowering the barriers to professional help.
It's really about having, real conversations about it, getting people more educated about it and talking more about it. So I think this grassroots stuff is so powerful.
His passion for the issue drawn from his personal battles.
I had a lot of problems when I was in school, like heaps of problems. I suffered greatly with different mental illnesses.
Hunter Mental Health Service Headspace says the informal format is a real winner for young people.
When it's coming from someone who isn't a teacher or a counsellor, it's great because the kids see that it's not just, these professionals that are saying this, it's real life people, it's people with a story.
And his advice for people wanting to help spread the message:
what we can really help each other with is feeling less judged and more loved and supporting each other in getting help and sticking with it.
For more information on the events, head to his Facebook page. Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
His name is synonymous with the sport of ice hockey. Now the Great One is heading down under for the first time as part of a series featuring games between the US and Canada.
Hey ice hockey fans, I'm excited to announce I'll be in Sydney for the 2016 Wayne Gretzky Ice Hockey Classic.
A man who's helped to grow the sport in Australia will experience the excitement firsthand.
Since Wayne Gretzky's in the country for those games, he decided he wanted to get on the ice. So he got the promoters to, hey, let's get a game going to, show some more hockey. And I got a phone call, invited to play with Wayne Gretzky.
North Stars general manager Gary Doré will play with and against Gretzky in a 40-minute exhibition game, his only appearance on the ice during the tour.
The greatest hockey player ever, and for me to just be sitting beside him will just be amazing. But actually get a couple shifts with the guy, get out there and play and skate with him, and it's just amazing. I really don't know how to feel this time.
Doré admits he hasn't played a serious game since the 80s. On Saturday, the crowd is expected to be over 20,000 people.
I'm very nervous. I've been trying to hit the ice as much as I can and the gym. I just want to get out there and have a good time and enjoy myself and be able to just take it all in.
I just thought with my defence I could have been a little bit better. I think I fell off some tackles and
you know, I'll improve hopefully week to week and more minutes to get to play with these boys.
It's been a breeding ground for some of Australia and the world's best golfers. A tournament where the current world number one etched his name in Belmont Golf Club's history. Jeff Ogilvy and Justin Rose, just to name a few, also went on to have success at the highest level.
There's a lot of work gone in by a lot of people with our volunteers, our sponsors, the local community's been absolutely fantastic as well. Supported this tournament for many years, and yes, to have the dates taken from us is a bit hard to swallow.
Its place on the golfing calendar has been crucial. Traditionally held the week prior to the New South Wales Amateur Championships, the best players around the globe would come here first. In 2016, that date is no longer available.
If we wanted to keep the ranking, we could, but we would have to change our dates. And we just would not get the players to come here for that type of a tournament at another time of year.
Having lost their major sponsor, money was the major factor in Golf New South Wales's decision.
That's pretty hard these days to get the type of sponsorship we need to try and get international players.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.